Hello everybody, welcome back to my kind of art, and for today's video this is going to be a step-by-step tutorial of this painting that I created of these baile folklorico dancers or folkloric Mexican dancers. And this is going to be a bit of some sped up time-lapse video slash text and just kind of helping you how I created this from beginning to end. And I'm doing this for a lot of my paintings and drawings because I have been getting a lot of requests to do tutorial videos, so I'm going to start doing that to most of my new videos and to a lot of my older videos, and just kind of extending them and making them longer versions of what I used to do before. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. And before we get started, if you're new to the channel, consider following, ringing the bell, hitting the like button, leaving a comment to stay notified for more content. And let's get to it. So for step number one, after directly drawing on the canvas with a pencil, I went ahead and started doing the sky, which was a very light blue with a bit of white and diluted with water so that it can be transparent. And it's easily one of the things that I like to do first, is to go ahead and lay a base color, which is just a solid color, so that I can know exactly where things are going to be placed before I get into the really detailed and thicker paint afterwards. For a large canvas like this, I like to use a wide paintbrush and also a tiny spray bottle with water, so that I can directly spray on the canvas, and it makes it easier to do a light wash, and it just helps you cover a lot of surface area compared to a tiny brush. And after covering the large portion of the sky with a larger brush, I went ahead and used a medium-sized square brush to go ahead and fill in the areas around the figures. And I went ahead and did the same step for the bottom part of the painting, which was the concrete, and this was made with a light gray, and also used the large brush to go ahead and cover in the area as quick as possible. And this one also helps save time by using a larger brush. And in order to create the gray that I wanted, I used a black with a lot of white. I watered it down with water and also used a hint of blue to go ahead and match the sky, and also adding a drop of orange will help create a light brown color that also helps with the paint looking too flat. Now the same step applies when it comes to the figures, and these Mexican dancers, especially this first one towards the left, the largest one in the entire painting, is completely made of orange. So this one, it was very easy to do. I just went ahead and grabbed some orange with a tiny bit of white, but diluted in water. And this one makes it easier to be transparent, so I can see right underneath, so that when eventually we do get to the detailed portion of this painting, I'm able to see where the different details, shadows, lights, and also different paint colors and hues will go. Oh, and by the way, any type of paint palettes that you might have are great to use. Any type of piece of paper that's glossy makes it easier to throw away after you're done. But if you're like me, I like to recycle a lot of things and just use them so they won't go to waste. So I use a lot of covers and caps from different foods, like for example butter dishes or any kind of food containers that are plastic. Makes it really easy to just use, and you don't have to go ahead and buy paint palettes all the time. And yeah, this is exactly what I do. So you're going to be seeing me use a lot of different ones throughout this entire painting. Now when it came to the hair, the skin of all the other dancers, I went ahead and used a medium-sized brush, of a squared one actually, and same thing applies. I used light brown and black watered down because this is a wash or more of a watercolor type for these first steps, so that it makes it easier to see underneath before we get into the detailed painting. So for the second part of this dress, the second dancer, I used a crimson red with a little bit of orange and obviously some water to go ahead and thin it down. The second one, I used a blue with a little bit of white, also thinned it down. And for the next one, I used a pink because this one's going to be a pink dress. And this one also with lots of white, a little bit of red. And it's also the smallest one, so I used a tiny rounded pointed brush for this one. And I started this painting, I actually chose these colors and actually played around with them so that they can not only complement each other but not fight with each other. So that's why I decided to choose different types of warm and cool colors so they wouldn't compete with each other, and also so it can stand out against the bright blue and also the gray colors as well. So whenever you are painting and using your reference photo or just creating everything originally, you do want to go ahead and play around with the colors when they're next to each other, so that way you can make an artistic choice, so that you want your subjects to stand out and not kind of be lost and be too overwhelming when the entire painting comes together. And although for most of this video it is going to be a sped up version, I'm honestly not taking a lot of time when I'm going to do this wash on these dancers, because this is the step where I just really want to lay down a base paint so that I can move on to the steps where I'm really going to get into detail, and it's going to take a lot longer. So yeah, you're going to notice, for example, on this green Mexican male dancer that I'm just laying down the paint with a small paintbrush, and just moving on to each one because I really want to go ahead and cover everything that's white and just move on to the next step. Okay, so this is the step where we can actually notice everything is covered with a base layer. So now that we know where we stand on the colors that we chose, we can go ahead and go into detail in this main dancer, which was the one with the orange dress. This one I can actually start going into the shadows just a bit, not too much, but I went ahead and started with a tiny paintbrush, and I started looking at my reference photo and started adding in the darker oranges with a little bit of more of a red orange. And this is where I can go ahead and start doing the ruffles in her dress, and also I started seeing where the darker parts of the cast shadows are, and also I went into the hair and made it a little darker as well. And I went into her skin color, and I even added the white in the ruffles of her dress as well. And now this is a step where the paint is a little thicker, and if I didn't mention this before, I'm using an acrylic paint. And one of the reasons I use acrylic paint for all of my paintings in the beginning is because acrylic paint dries in minutes, and this is why I never use oil paint for the most part for a painting when I begin, because I really want things to dry really quick. And because I was painting outside, everything literally dried within a few minutes, and this makes it a lot easier for me to move on to every step without having to worry about things taking forever to dry. about you, but as I'm painting, I do like to experiment with different size brushes, and you're gonna find that some work better than others for different things. For example, for the small head and hair, I did enjoy using this smaller rounded brush because it just made it easier to go ahead and work around different corners and details. And also, I'm not sure if you noticed as well, I like to go ahead and blend in things with my finger as well, just to kind of push things down. And because this is the step where we're still adding a thicker base paint without so much detail in the beginning, it's okay to kind of just make things a little quicker. And this is just more of a step that we like to go ahead and lay down more and more layers, so that when we get to the steps when we can take even more time to go ahead and individually work on sections, it makes it a lot easier to know which colors you use and which areas to go ahead and spend your time on. Now for the following steps, after I use the white paint to go ahead and do the ruffles in all of the dancers' dresses, this is the step when I started using the water mixable oil paints. And if you've never used that before, it is just oil paint that's actually a lot easier to work with because you are able to thin it down and mix it with water. But in this painting, I used an Artisan water mixable oil paint medium. And what this does is that instead of water, an oil paint medium helps not only dilute the paint and makes it a lot easier to spread, but it also keeps the integrity of the paint intact, and it keeps the paint from dulling out and looking less vibrant. And this is what I like about using a medium with a water mixable oil paint. So as you're going to notice for this final step of this large painting, because we use acrylic paint in the beginning to lay everything down, everything is dried, everything is flat, and just easier to go ahead and lay our water mixable oil paint on top. And because oil paint does take hours and sometimes even days to completely dry and seal, this makes it easier to do blending and things like that. But because I actually chose to do more of an slightly impressionistic painting style, which means I'm not going to perfectly blend this, I'm mainly going to be using brush strokes and maybe do things a bit softer and blurrier to give the impression of movement. And this is the style that I actually been doing for a lot of my dancing and Mexican style paintings. I just really like that things don't need to be perfectly blended, because sometimes you do lose this movement when it comes to doing things so clean. But yeah, this is what I did for this painting, that I made things a lot softer. And yeah, I really enjoyed how this turned out. And if you did stay towards this entire video towards the end, thank you so much for watching. And if you're brand new to this channel, please consider hitting the like button, ringing the bell to stay notified for more content, and see you later. Bye.